Good evening, everybody. My name is Roger Morton, and I'm the Director of Transportation Services for the city and county. Welcome to our community meeting on e-mobility devices. And specifically today, we're probably going to emphasize mostly pedal bikes and e-bikes. We have some of my staff and other city staff that are also signed on to this meeting, and I'd like to recognize them. First, my deputy, John Nuuchi. Also helping us drive the show is our Vision Zero planner, Daniel Alexander. One of our staff attorneys, Tony Valdez, is monitoring. Our PIO, Travis Ota, is monitoring. And I see online, we also have some staff. We have Kelly Akasaki from Traffic Engineering. We have Travis Council from the Hawaii Bicycling League. We also have Oren Nakamura, who does a lot of our bike planning. And I see from HPD, we have Thomas Billins from HPD from the traffic division. As working here, we've had a lot of representatives from other city departments that have been involved in this. And we have representatives here from the city council that are monitoring this and keeping notes. We've also met before with e-bike industry reps, people that sell bicycles. We met with the Department of Education and the Hawaii Department of Transportation. And to all of those groups, mahalo for spending your time with us and giving us your concerns about e-bikes. I want to just think a little bit about the history and the purpose for our e-bike working group. So far this year on Oahu, we've had 41 traffic-related fatalities. That's about one per week. Our last one was yesterday. It involved a moped rider. E-bikes are a growing and popular mode of travel, and we support their responsible use. E-bikes represent innovative technology. They're relatively inexpensive, and they're climate-friendly devices. But their fast growth has not been without issues, and here's what we found. There's been a growing number of mobility device crashes, especially involving a young keiki. Residents have complained that they've observed dangerous driving around town, and consumers complain that they're not always able to register all the devices they buy, which creates problems for them. Today is your opportunity to hear where we are and to make your voices and comments heard. Our working group will make its recommendations to City Council for possible inclusion in our Bill 52, which is before the council now. Our emphasis today is going to be on e-bikes and on pedal bikes. These are bikes that have a maximum power of 750 watts. This is our subject area today. But we're aware there's still a lot more powerful cycles out there, such as mountain bikes, dirt bikes, electric motorcycles, and so on. How should these devices be defined, and should they require registration? These all need to be addressed as well, but not through the existing Bill 52 now before council. And there are many emerging small mobility devices, such as one wheels, hoverboards, stand-on scooters, etc. We need rules on how these devices should operate, or should they operate on public streets or sidewalks. We'll make recommendations to the state, and we anticipate that some of these new devices will be defined and rules will be created, but that's for another day. Today's presentation is going to be presented by my deputy, John Nuuchi. And we're going to invite your comments as you go along. You can ask questions, you can make comments. Please do it in the chat function. And then after the presentation, we'll try to address the comments provided through the chat. At this point, without further ado, let me turn this over to John.
Good evening, everybody. Really want to thank you guys for taking time out from your day and your evening and time from your families and friends and otherwise to join us in this very important voyage of discovery. I think, a lot of times we feel that we can't move things as quickly as we want to. But in the case of, e-bikes, we identified a problem, and we're going to kind of walk you through some of the problem statements today, and then lead you to some of the conclusions that we put together a really educated, learned, innovative working group to address some of this. When Director Morton was talking about the characteristics of e-bikes, I think one of the things that he didn't say was that e-bikes are also super fun. And I think anything that's super fun can lead to, like people having super fun, but we want to make sure that they're responsible on it. So today we'll be discussing, I guess, what we're working towards, Bill 52, relating to electric bicycles. So first of all, I think, we want to be very clear. Department of Transportation Services in Honolulu, we operate a multimodal network. We have everything from Skyline Rail to the bus to Handyvan to the Beaky system. And we do feel that we strongly believe that e-bikes are an innovative new mobility method that people have embraced, and there is absolutely a place for this new mobility on our island of Oahu. They're eco-friendly, they're economical when you compare it to the cost of owning a car. They're accessible and convenient. And for me, I sweat a lot when I exercise. So it's nice to be able to ride something and have a little bit of an assist. And I think it is a great gateway to get people back on cycles that, sometimes we have hills here. Sometimes we have big hills here on our island, and just getting people to embrace bicycling again through the assistive nature of an e-bike will get people back into the saddle again. And people can customize how much assistance they want with the e-bike. And personally, just so you know, I do own an e-bike, and my usage of it has changed over time. I used to really like to pound that throttle and then to, have it assist me as much as possible. But I found that over time, as I got more comfortable riding, I have lowered the level of assistance. So I'm riding more on John power rather than battery power. And again, we realize that this is a great entry on an island that, sometimes it's hard to get around on this island. There's a lot of congestion, there's a lot of busy places to go. But we are working at building up our complete streets network so that we have more safe spaces for bikes and pedestrians across all modes. And e-bikes are a cheaper alternative to even, mopeds or scooters or cars. And as we see transportation contributing to a lot of people's costs and burden, we think e-bikes are absolutely appropriate. And so therefore, we just wanted to make a strong statement that for all the reasons that we support e-bikes, for their green nature, their ability to get people back into active transportation and active mobility, we're recognizing our support, and we see that it is a great tool for reducing our congestion and overall sustainability on our island. So we convened an e-mobility working group that had members from our Department of Transportation Services, our safety-minded professionals of the Honolulu Police Department, and our emergency medical services. Our Department of Customer Services was involved for the technical responsibility of being the registering authority for the city. We had the influence of our Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resilience, pushing this as a green method and encouraging us to think more about how do we get people to more safely adopt e-bikes. We had the great support of our Honolulu City Council, and I know some of the council staff are online with us tonight. I want to recognize them and thank them for coming too. And there's been no better time that the City Department of Transportation Services has been aligned and hand in hand with our Hawaii Department of Transportation, HDOT. Under Director Ed Sniffin's leadership, we've been able to do great things in terms of just being able to coordinate agency to agency and not separate out, oh, this is a state thing or it's a city thing. No, it's kako, it's everybody, it's all of us together. And we also have a great not-for-profit partner that has always been supportive of all things bike and all things safety and all things PED, our Hawaii Bicycling League. And I know their director, Travis Council, is online with us right now. So those were the members of our e-mobility working group. And first of all, we wanted to kind of dive into, I think this is no secret to anyone, but e-bikes have really escalated in terms of how much you see them around, and who owns them and who rides them. If you look back to 2021, you see that split, right? That in 2021, there were 25,000 regular pedal-powered bikes registered and only 1,400 e-bikes registered. So it was about 95% regular bike, 5% e-bike. But fast forward to 2023, you look at 10,000 regular bikes and almost 8,000 e-bikes. So we're reaching kind of that tipping point where it's almost a 50-50 split. The numbers we have went up to May of this year, so about half the year. And at that time, we have 9,000 registered bikes and 4,500 registered e-bikes. So we're anticipating that, with the Christmas season and the gift giving season, that our split will be more starkly, we might tip in favor of e-bike registrations over regular bike registrations. But that being said, what we see, what we feel in our neighborhoods, we have a good sense of what goes on in our city, right? This is what we cannot ignore. The incidents that we have on e-bikes by the numbers. Year to date, we estimate from our records that we have about 180 e-bike crashes. Yeah, so these are actually, to be clear, Director Morton is clarifying that these are crashes that happened that required or where EMS was requested or attended to a victim, an injured person, 180 just this year. So if you look at that, I mean, that's almost what, 2 per day?
Yeah.
6 of those were critical injuries, and those were crashes that were, say an e-bike got involved with a regular vehicle like a car or a truck or otherwise. Unfortunately, we did have 1 fatality, and that was again an e-bike against a regular vehicle. But more sobering, more serious to that point, we had 30 incidents with keiki 15 and under. And these are keiki who are not by law supposed to be riding e-bikes. And if that, that moment does give us pause. Do you have anything you want?
Well, just I think that's the reason why we formed the e-bike group too, was we know there's a problem. And that's why we formed it, but keiki safety is, when you're 15 or 14 or 13, everybody knows you think you're indestructible. But with the numbers, with 30, that's a sobering number for everybody.
And again, I'm gonna go back to e-bikes. It feels fun and free in a way that, bikes also do, but this one it feels different. And therefore, I think we need to look at things a little differently. So this was kind of our North Star, our guiding principle here, was that this was not tolerable to us, especially in a city where we're embracing and striving towards Vision Zero, where we have 0 fatalities on our streets. So when we kind of distilled what the current e-bike issues are, we put what we've noticed and what was brought up in our talks with other departments and constituents and council members and everybody. This is what we believe are the issues, that e-bikes are inconsistently defined. When we look at what is an e-bike, our partners at the White Bicycling League do a great presentation on how difficult it is to decide when something is called an e-bike and when it's not. And they have a great video, they have a great slide that shows like a CAPTCHA, when you have to verify that you're human online, and it says, click on the e-bikes. And a lot of times people get kicked out because they can't do that. But we see the benefit of class definitions that distinguish different classes that are consistent with some national trends and other places that do classify the different devices of e-bikes. There are ambiguities related to licensing. We do require some registration for some e-bikes, but not all of them can be registered, as Director Morton pointed out. So then you have some that are unregistered, and you have some that are, and you have just inconsistent applicability of rules. How people are riding e-bikes in mixed traffic, and I think that's probably the brightest light that has been shown on the e-bike scene right now, is that you can ride e-bikes at a higher speed. We've seen videos on social media with people riding them on high-speed roadways such as highways and freeways. But the fact is that you have people also riding irresponsibly, reckless or dangerous behavior. So we have exhibition riders who are performing these maneuvers for the benefit of social media or to show off. And they're doing wheelies and stunts and other things that push the limits of safety. And by that means are, endangering other users of the roadway, and that's not acceptable. And, we do have varied helmet and equipment standards, and we have a law already that mandates helmets for riders under 16, but we want to look at expanding and maybe making different requirements for all age groups in terms of helmet and other equipment use for safety purposes. everything comes down to enforcement, and we're really glad to have the partnership with our HPD. They worked with us in this working group side by side, and we want to come up with some standards that are enforceable. I mean, there's no sense in creating laws that are ambiguous or further complicate the real common sense ability for our HPD forces to be able to enforce laws out on the roadways. And we do recognize that there is an extreme need for public education and more infrastructure and better signage and just all around knowledge for safe riding in our city. So we are looking at a classification for e-bikes. Basically, we are looking at 3 classes. The first class, very simply, is an e-bike that has a motor assist only when you're pedaling. It has a maximum speed of 20 miles an hour and does not have a separate throttle that you can use to propel the bike with your thumb or in some other way that lets you move without pedaling. A class 2 e-bike has the same max speed, also has pedal assist, but it also has a throttle that you can use so you don't have to pedal if you don't want to. The class 3 bike is similar, except it has a max speed of 28 miles an hour and no throttle. So it does go a lot faster, but it does not meet what an e-bike is defined as by state law as a low-speed electric bicycle. So if anybody's head is starting to spin already, we're familiar with that. We've waded through all of these classifications. And so any vehicle that doesn't fit into these 3 classes falls into an unclassified category and may not right now be legally considered an e-bike. So if you look at not an e-bike on the right side of your screen, we have all kinds of things. We have electric dirt bikes, we have off-road bikes, we have mountain bikes, mountain e-bikes. And I guess the strainer here is in Hawaii, if it goes faster than 20 miles an hour with the rider not having to pedal and has a motor of more than 750 watts of power and does not have operable pedals, it is not an e-bike and cannot be operated on the roadways. So it's just I know it's a lot to take in, but I think what we can do is we can post some of these things up for consideration. And so people have a longer time to take a look at this. As with everything, there are rights and responsibilities to anybody that uses our roadways. And, for e-bike users, people who operate an e-bike have the same rights as standard bicycle riders. They're responsible to follow the rules of the road, plain and simple. Just like other vehicles on the road, follow the rules of the road. However, electric e-bikes are exempt from financial responsibilities, such as having the need for a driver's license, titles, and license plates. So there are, again, that falls into the benefits of being able to operate an e-bike on our streets. So when we looked at and worked with the City Council on developing Bill 52, the first clear objective was to regulate the possession and use of bicycles and e-bikes in Honolulu. And towards that, we want to work towards ordinance changes in the revised ordinances of Honolulu. So our e-mobility working group has come up with some recommendations, some proposed changes to the revised ordinances of Honolulu relating to the new rules for e-bikes. Some of the definitions that are pretty important in Bill 52. Again, think back to that diagram we just saw. So an electric bicycle is a low-speed bike defined in federal code. But that class 1, again, we're going to review that again. No quiz at the end, no pop quiz, but class 1 e-bike it has a motor, but it only assists when you're pedaling, has no throttle, and the motor stops assist at 20 miles an hour. Class 2 has the same motor, can propel the bike with a throttle, but the throttle and the pedal assist will cut out at 20 miles an hour, as does the class 1. The third, class 3, is not a low-speed electric bike. The motor assists only while pedaling, and the motor stops its assist at 28 miles an hour. And like we had in the other diagram, there are out-of-class electric vehicles, bikes that are not included in Bill 52, such as electric cycles with high-powered motors, something that can go faster than 28 miles an hour, the ones that we have seen out on our roads, and those dirt off-road bikes not intended for use on public streets. Licensing requirements. So all e-bikes have to be registered if the user wants to operate them on public streets, alleys, bicycle paths, or sidewalks. Right now, by our current laws and ordinances, and most responsible dealers, except wholesalers, will require a user when purchasing an e-bike class 1 or class 2 to license them with the city and county, with our customer services department. Bill 52 will look at potential registration requirements to allow class e-bikes to be registered. We would like to recommend, though, that we have some time to make sure that our city processes can be made effective July 1st of 2025. But again, we have to actually see the ordinance through the public process at the city councils. We don't want to contemplate anything that, or speak for anything that we still have to work out with the city council. For more information on registration, we do have a link here. It's at www.8. Daniel, if you could you put that link in the chat for people to refer to if they want to find out more about registration? Because I know we get that a lot where people don't know what kind of e-bike they have. They don't know if it needs to be registered or if it can be registered. So I'll give you a moment to kind of see that and put that in the chat. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready to go on. Okay, great, quick. So there are some, we kind of looked to the federal manufacturer requirements to maybe kind of help clarify what we looked at in Bill 52. There is a labeling requirement for e-bikes. They must display the class, the top speed, and motor wattage in, and I know we're being a little funny here, but 9-point Arial font, which is as big as it's gonna be. So we don't know why they chose that, but yeah. The motor must disengage when the rider stops pedaling or the brakes are applied or both. And there is a tampering restriction under the federal manufacturer requirements that modifying electric bicycles' motor speed is illegal. So a good portion of Bill 52 will focus on age requirements for e-bikes. And one of the things is our current existing laws require e-bike riders to be at least 15 years of age. Our state helmet requirement does say that anybody under the age of 16 has to use a helmet. We are leaning towards just looking at how fast these bikes can go and the types of crashes that have happened. Any additional protection for your coconut is totally worth it. So we're going to recommend an increase in mandatory age for helmet use from under 16 to under 18. So once you turn 18, do as you wish. We would hope that people still adopt the habit of riding helmets for safety, as our partners at Hawaii Bicycling League always advocate for. But we would like to see the new helmet requirement for consistency and ease of application and ease of enforcement, that the new helmet requirement would apply to both pedal bicycles, standard bicycles, and electric bicycles. And I know that has some contention built into that. So we want to have the opportunity to discuss that in a public forum with City Council. And if anybody has any questions about anything we've said so far, please do put it in the chat and we can address that later. With that, no good ordinance or no good effort towards improving the condition of something is worthy without education and outreach. And we realize that there is a far path to go when it comes to outreach. So we would like to partner with not only DTS and HPD and the city agencies, but the Hawaii Department of Transportation and the Hawaii Bicycling League to actually have community engagement events, much like our fourth graders in our schools go through bike ed in fourth grade. We want to have more events that showcase safe operations of e-bikes, educating adults on e-bike rules and educating the users on safe operations of e-bikes. We want to continue our education in the schools to promote more educational campaigns. We appreciate Councilmember Talba did have a lot reach out to the schools in his district about e-bike usage in middle schools. And again, as we've said, the current law only provides legal riding of e-bikes for keiki that are 15 years or older. So, anybody in middle school should not have been riding e-bikes to school. Again, it's difficult for DTS because okay, it's difficult for DTS at times because we want to encourage people to adopt new modes, but at the same time, we need to keep everybody safe. And being that a lot of our keiki and our younger users are maybe non-traditional in media, we wanted to reach out in digital and social media platforms to again make sure that everybody knows what they need to know about helmet requirements, how to ride safely, how to use hand signals, how to operate on a roadway. And the last piece of that would be to look towards the possibility of subsidized safety gear. So helmets, providing helmets for those who maybe can't get one otherwise, and or to offer discounts for helmets and protective safety gear. So our next steps, we will be making recommendations to further the progress of Bill 52 in the City Council. And there are some gaps in the sense that we need to have the state legislature address categorically the state traffic code such that e-bikes can be incorporated a little bit better or more specifically in the state Hawaii revised statutes. So we want those things to be clarified. We will do things on a local basis here in the city and county of Honolulu via our city council. And we will try to carry forth some of those recommendations to the state ledge when they do open in the beginning of the new year. We also are looking at part of our recommendations, next steps, as defining and classifying the larger electric cycles so that we know things that are currently out of class electric scooters and other micromobility devices, everything you see, just based on speed, motor power, and intended use, that we can further define and classify those and give people who want to use different things and the ability to license and use things legally, as long as we deem them to be safe to be operated on our city roads. We also need to create a better framework for registering everything else: electric foot scooters, e-motorcycles, other higher powered micromobility vehicles, whatever, even stuff that hasn't been invented yet that fall outside standard classifications. And for some of these devices, we need to develop street operation rules for them. Those are electric foot scooters, everything else. How to operate safely, what's permitted, where they can operate, especially in places where they might have conflicts with pedestrians. So Bill 52 will be scheduled by the Honolulu City Council. We assume it will be scheduled at the earliest date that it can be. We don't know exactly what that date is yet, but that is the time for people to come out and to share with the City Council and for public record what we think, what the place for e-bikes are in our community. And I think that's the end of our presentation. We have some places where you can contact us here via our Complete Streets program, some social medias. This is a good place to leave comments. And I'm going to kick it back over to Director Morton.
Yeah, I think that one area that we didn't include in the presentation, but what we will be recommending to council is a clear definition of what dangerous driving is on an e-bike. And basically, we say that people have to ride 1 foot on each side of the e-bike, and then we go on to further define specific maneuvers and behaviors that are not allowed. And these would include things like doing wheelies on the public street or on a sidewalk or those types of areas.
Standing on the seat.
Standing on the seat or standing on the handlebars. It's amazed me at how many of these dangerous activities are. We gotta recognize that kids are kids, and so if they do these things not on a public street, not on a public sidewalk, You know, it may not be the best advice for people, but we're not going to tolerate them on streets that are shared with automobiles or pedestrians for those types of behaviors, except if it's a parade and it's a permitted activity as part of the parade. But those are things. We hope that you know, we're anxious to. We've spent about 3 months getting this done, which is super fast for such an effort to try to define some of these things. We are planning to work with our State Department of Transportation as well. They also have groups that are looking into e-bikes use. It is not just an Oahu problem, it is a statewide problem with representation from all of our neighbor islands, as well as our city and county of Honolulu. At this point, I think what we'll do is we'll switch to see if we can take a look at some of the questions, if they grew up, and how are we gonna do this, John?
I'm gonna look through the chat for questions.
Okay,
First of all, let me just do a scan.
Maybe Daniel can.
Let's find the first one and then.
well,
Okay.
let's go to Mr. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it says, who takes financial responsibility in cases where it's e-bike versus pedestrian? As we stated, there is no requirement to have insurance, but there is vicarious liability that the person who causes the accident, or if they're a minor, that's imputed to their parents, have responsibility if there is an accident that causes injury. While insurance is not required, it is possible that people can get insurance. And I think that's an individual decision, but the liability is the person who causes the accident.
Question that we have here.
Why are they allowed in a bike lane and run red lights? Well, first of all, they're not allowed to run red lights. That's an enforcement issue. If they do run red lights, they are subject to getting cited by HPD for that. They are allowed to operate in bike lanes because they are considered bikes.
And we appreciate that everybody has put, a lot of people have put comments in it, and this comments will be part of our record.
Yeah.
Moving forward. But just to summarize some of them, I know everybody can see the chat too. We do see a lot of concern about operating on sidewalks.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of our concerns too, is how do we blend safety?
Yeah.
For all users. Again, our complete streets is not just looking at bikes, but we are looking at if you have a bike user, like a child riding a bike on a sidewalk, how do you maintain safety for Kupuna and everybody from Keiki to Kupuna? We have a lot of comments related to that. We did notice that someone noted as a blind individual to urge all e-bikes to have a bell or horn. That is actually a requirement.
Yeah.
And we would encourage everybody to just practice a certain amount of etiquette. One of the things as an e-bike user, so my e-bike has a 10 mile an hour, it has a speedometer on it that it's pretty easy for me to see and lights up at night too. It can go, it's a class 2 e-bike, it can go about 20 miles an hour. 20 miles an hour versus a pedestrian that is going 3 miles an hour is brutally fast. So that's something I think we want to address through education to help people understand that even though you go a lower speed, if you go 12 miles an hour past a pedestrian going 3 miles an hour, it's still very disorienting for the pedestrian. So we need to teach people about etiquette and courtesy and reestablish maybe what common courtesy and common safety is if these are to be allowed to be ridden on sidewalks. And we do see other comments about no e-bike should be allowed on pedestrian and bicycle paths. We talked about, some people noted speed limits. If anybody does have any more questions, we're gonna go look further down in the chat. Some people talked about enforcement. and expressed opinions about the different types of e-bikes, such as the Class 3 e-bikes. And again, somebody brought up how startling it is when an e-bike passes even a regular bicycle.
You can see from the tone of the question, so that there's a lot of concern about e-bikes. And one of the balancing acts for us is to take a look at those 30 injuries that Kiki had year to date on us too, and try to balance that along with pedestrian rights and all the others, because you know do you want to have your 15 and 16-year-old children, you know, driving on major arterial roads in mixed traffic? And it's a balancing act for us. I don't really have that answer, but I know that it is it's very dangerous for the children as well, and it's also dangerous for the pedestrian. So in this working group, what we're trying to do is we're trying to recognize the balance that's required to, as we promote overall, we promote public safety and you know, recognize that these technologies are here and they're not going to go away.
And I think we do have to address with our partners at Hawaii Bicycling League and other places, and with our schools, that it is tough to teach not only Kiki, but even young adults who may not, or other adults who may not have ever driven before,
Right.
how they look when they're on a bike. You know, that if you're riding a bike on a sidewalk and you're crossing everybody's driveway, that again is a potential accident waiting to happen. So it's about furthering different understandings of from a bicyclist rider's seat and from a driver's seat. So there's a lot of education that we know we have to consider. I want to highlight a comment in the chat from Robin Hensky, who is from Councilmember Dos Santos Tam's office. She provided an update that Councilmember Dos Santos Tam will work with Council Chair Tommy Waters' office to schedule a special transportation committee meeting in order to have this measure passed by the end of the year. So they will be in close contact with us at DTS, and she did provide her email, robin.hensky@honolulu.gov, and a number of 808-768-5006. Please feel free to reach out to the council member's office, and we will do our best to promote with the council when this special transportation committee meeting is. And again, it speaks to the urgency and the seriousness of, you know, we're approaching the gift giving season. And I'll say, you know, as DTS deputy last year, I really considered doing dressing up as a Grinch and telling parents, hey, you know, don't buy your kids an e-bike unless they're 15 or older. And I thought, you know, maybe I should have done that. So anyway, that's all I'm saying, is that we want to make sure that we educate everyone well, and the parents and the keiki know what the laws are. And we want to provide a better framework, better structure for enforceable rules that will keep everybody safe to the extent that we can.
I see a comment from that says, please consider helmets for all roads using devices for all ages. Again, our emphasis tonight was on e-bikes, but I think the consensus of our working group is that any vehicle that is operated on a public street should require someone to wear a helmet if they are under 18. The comment was for all groups. We certainly recognize that that all groups benefit from wearing a helmet. I know that in our working group, EMS said something that stuck in my mind too, that they said that when they respond to an injury, e-bikes are the game changer. If you're not wearing a helmet, you're so much more in risk of having serious injury than you are if you're wearing a helmet. Having said that, the helmets are required by motorcycles if you are under 18. I'm not sure what the compliance rate is on that, but that's the law. And one of our thoughts was, in setting it at 18, was that it made more sense to have a consistent age that went across all different types of devices, rather than saying this one 15, this one 18, this one 17. And so our recommendation for this and our recommendation as we go forward, because there will be additional concerns over those out of class vehicles, those small micro mobility devices that people ride on, stand on. All of those devices are serious issues, but I think the consensus of our group is that any vehicle like that, any motorized vehicle that is used on a street should have the person should riding it, if they're under 18, should be wearing a helmet or will be required to wear a helmet. You want to take another one? Okay, the question, one of the questions was, why is the Department of Education not enforcing the state law that are already set forth? And I think this really had to do with the Eva Mackay Middle School that unfortunately there was some serious accidents in the Eva area, and the principal decided to ban it. We have met with the Department of Education. You know, they recognize the issue with e-bikes. They are working with us, at least they're monitoring what we're doing, and they're working with the State Department of Transportation too. It is a Department of Education issue, I think, for you know, for middle schools, for elementary schools. There's really, you're in violation if you're under 15. And so I can't condone any school allowing people to ride e-bikes that are not of age in the state of Hawaii. So that would be my comment and recommendation to DOE, is that they very carefully look at it. At the same time, you know, we have Safe Routes to Schools. That's a program. We encourage people to use bicycles to get to school. Not everybody can get dropped off by their parents. And so bicycles are a part, but you know, we think in some states there is no age limit for class 1 or class 2 bikes. We think that having an age limit in Hawaii is a reasonable thing because of the nature of our streets and just that we want to protect our keiki.
And I think there's one last question here in the chat that I want to get to. I think it's a really good way to kind of close up this discussion. How do you legislate courtesy and consideration?
Yeah.
Great question. You know, we only want to legislate things that don't necessarily take away people's rights, but enforce a safe operating environment for most everyone, or for everyone, if we can say everyone. But whoever asked the question, they're right. We cannot legislate courtesy and consideration. We can legislate the framework for rules, framework for operations, frameworks for enforcement. But courtesy and consideration, that's on each and every one of us. That is something we can address through education. That is something we can address through just, I love that question, because I would be the first to say you cannot legislate courtesy and consideration, but we owe it to ourselves. We live in a society. If you ride an e-bike or any kind of bike, or if any user of the roadway, cars, trucks, is on the roadway, you're responsible for yourself, but you're responsible for everybody else that is on that roadway with you. And I think that maybe I'm gonna soapbox a little bit here, but I feel like we're losing control of courtesy for others, especially on our roadways. And that's a hill I'm willing to die on. I'm not okay with how we honk out of frustration, how we honk out of rudeness, how we drive as if there are no consequences. And maybe social media is the megaphone that is amplifying us seeing these bad actors and making us think the world is kind of coming to a terrible end on our streets. But at the same time, we are all responsible for ultimately ourselves. And if we have keiki, we're responsible for our keiki to a certain extent, but even they are responsible for themselves. So it's a great question to frame this discussion, and kind of takes us back to why we're doing this. We see that people have no framework for bad acting right now. And even if they do, we don't have a framework for enforceability of that bad action. We want to be very clear what we have issues with on our roadways. How do we keep everybody safe? So I don't know if you have, Roger, you have any?
Just a closing comment is really to thank everybody that attended this meeting. I encourage everybody to monitor the Bill 52 to go online and to get you can see the original Bill 52. And shortly, I think within a matter of a week or so, it's likely that there will be a amended version that will contain all of our recommendations, or at least the ones that council wants to set forth. But we are making our recommendations to council. Council staffs are reviewing them now for consistency with other ordinances and laws, as is our city corporation council as well. But I encourage everybody to stay abreast. One of the reasons we're having this public meeting is that we do feel the need for publicizing this issue, because when you see the stark number of 30 children that were needed emergency ambulance attention because of a crash, that's a staggering number, and that's what we're trying to do here, is just try to reduce that number down or eliminate it entirely. But I thank everybody. Is there any other questions up there, John?
I don't think that's all the questions we had. We do appreciate everybody's comments. We're gonna incorporate that into just our record of showing kind of where people on this call landed with their not only feelings, but their observations and their ideas.
Further comments can be to Complete Streets email.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to have any further comments, please direct them to Complete Streets, one word, at honolulu.gov. And with that, so mahalo for spending the time with us this evening. I know everybody has other things to do, and as we head into the holiday season, we want everybody to be extra safe out there. Be responsible for yourselves and the people that you love and the people that love you. And if you want to see Roger or I dress up as a Grinch and do a holiday e-bike reminder, I don't know, what do you do? Throw up a reaction or
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, looks like we have one vote for Grinch.
All right, folks, thank you, everyone. We'll be stopping the meeting now.